All right, I think we're back. And going to jump into the next map, which, like I said, was Clayfields. This, of course, is our foreign-made map that hasn't been in the scene at all. All right, so we do have our Protoss player Galaxia in the bottom left, and our Zerg player QuakeCom, who already eliminated our Tier 3 Terran in the bottom right.
Yeah, a little bit about this map. It's pretty standard for the most part. It really takes after Fighting Spirit in a lot of ways. You have a really easy to take third base that's on a high ground, and your fourth base is actually a little bit easier to take than on Fighting Spirit, I think. But we also have the middle base, just a couple minerals, not a whole lot there. And we have a lot of these high grounds kind of in the four quadrants, kind of in the middle of the map, not super standard, I'd say. So as Terran player, I really love those high ground spots. They're great places to just throw a ton of siege tanks, and you just get a ton of map presence with those. I'll be interested to see how that works in PvZ. I'm imagining a lot of like good spots to put lurkers and to restrict the Protoss army movement. Since the middle of the map isn't super open, I imagine that'll be a lot better.
Right. I mean, I actually... The main thing on this map for me, ZVP, is that the pathing is very weird.
Yeah.
And those high ground spots actually aren't as good for lurkers as they are for tanks, because you can't cut off the whole pathing, because you can walk around them. And having lurkers in the middle of the map as Zerg just is difficult anyways. The high ground for me actually kind of just makes a lurker contain really difficult in most situations. Yeah, it's just kind of awkward for pathing. And like, you want to be, as Zerg, be able to move your Hydras around and not get them stuck on things, because when you get them stuck and you can't get a surround on the Protoss army, you're a lot more likely to just be stormed to death.
Yeah, it's not big open fields like circuit breakers or something where you can get a complete 360 surround with your Hydras. You're going to have to be going through chokes.
Or play really defensively. I mean, there's definitely the situation where you can, like, if you're splitting the map in any situation, but especially if you're in horizontal spawns like this, you can really get the whole right-hand side of the map really easily as Zerg. Because the like right-hand side of 12 and the right-hand side of 6 are both like kind of easy bases to hold, because they're kind of small and they only have one ramp. But I mean, split map in general, ZVP is difficult. So I don't know. They're also easy bases to hold for Protoss. I just personally am not a huge fan of this map just because of the pathing mostly. But it plays pretty standard ZVP in general, I think.
Yeah, as far as the openers go from Protoss, we just had a really standard Forge Fast Expand, threw down the Nexus right afterwards. And same from the Zerg, we had Overpool into Hatchery, so things are looking just about as standard as possible. So the match could really evolve into any number of diverging paths at this point. We see the Probe Scout. Hopefully we can keep this probe alive for a long time. We only have 2 links to chase after it, so we'll see how these players micro interact. Oh, here come 2 more.
Right.
Really,
the one thing
I was just going to mention real quick, when you're moving your workers back behind a mineral line like that, it's really important to click on your own minerals with your worker and have the mineral walk back so they don't get trapped. Like you saw that probe almost get trapped by those 2 lings. If it had been pathed to go mine the minerals in the main base of the Protoss player, it would have just moved right through those lings and not gotten trapped. So just a little micro trick when you're trying to scout.
That's actually a huge thing, and I find that a lot of like lower level players don't do that. But when I play like a really good Protoss player, they're always mineral rocking their probe around. But like if I play like a low level Protoss, like sometimes they can even kill the probe with 2 lings, which should be like very difficult to do if you're mineral walking it around.
Yeah, so it's just a good habit to get into. Whenever you're moving your worker around, try and have it be mineral walking as much as possible. Just prevents any unfortunate accidents, and especially in a matchup like PvZ where scouting is just absolutely paramount. If this probe dies, you could just see the Zerg player instantly throw down that Hydra Den and just go for a bust, and Protoss would be pretty much in the dark until they get Corsairs out on the map. So yeah, vital importance to keep that probe alive, and it looks like we don't have it alive anymore, so the Protoss player is pretty much at the mercy of Zerg at this point. But we see a rescout coming, which is super important.
Right, he did send that probe out. Yeah, he sent that probe out as soon as he lost the other one. That's good. He didn't see anything funny from Zerg at all. In fact, that he scouted that Zerg hadn't got gas.
Right.
And actually that the gas was too late to basically Hydra Bust or to go lair. So we do see a 5-hatch no gas coming out of QuakeCom. And I think that Galaxia, if he was paying attention, he should have suspected and known that just because he scouted that there was no gas so late.
But now we see double gas coming down, and the probe actually gets back in and sees this. So
yeah, I mean it's basically the one build that you can do where you never get gas. I mean, you can go Ling all in. That's kind of the other option. But I think that he also scouted that she was adding a 4th hatch. So that means that if there is any Ling all in, it's going to be a little bit later.
Yeah. So Protoss has really good information about what Zerg is doing at this point. But not necessarily an advantage for Protoss, just safe knowledge that we're not getting busted at this very second. But it still has to be very careful, as this opening can transition into a lot of different mid games.
Right. And this is a really good opening for, like, if there's any, like, tier 3 Zerg players that are watching this game, 5-hatch no gas is a really great ZVP build in general to start out with. It's not very difficult to execute. Like, a lot of ZVP builds are really complicated. Like 3-hatch Spire, 5-hatch Hydra is actually just a really difficult build to execute in general.
Yeah.
Unlike like ZVT builds are a lot, like the matchup is harder, but like the actual builds are a lot simpler in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
But the 3-hatch Spire, 5-hatch Hydra build is just difficult and requires quite a bit of time on single player as well.
Yeah.
So this is a really good option, and she's just going to have a very Hydra heavy mid game. And the only thing that really is like the drawback here is that she can't threaten mutas, but Protoss is actually going Stargate anyways. And at lower levels, you can't really take advantage of having mutas, and you rarely see Protoss take advantage of the fact that Zerg can't go mutas. So I think that in general, it's just a very strong build.
Yeah, agreed. I see that a lot in ZVT too. Lower level players tend to really want to do those super cool 2-hatch mutalisk builds, and when you see the pros do them, it's so much fun. You just see the Terran get absolutely picked apart by the Mutamicro, but it's a lot harder to execute than it looks, and just having that killer instinct in the Mutamicro to go with it makes Muta openings really hard in both matchups.
Yeah, for sure.
So this first Corsair coming out, killing the Overlord next to the base. I think this is a little bit of a mistake. I don't want to talk out of line here because I don't play this matchup, obviously, but I hear higher level players talk about this. When you're in the dark a little bit against Zerg, you kind of just want to send your first Corsair to their base, usually to get a scout off. Obviously, we did the rescout to see the 5-hatch no gas play, so we're not going to immediately get busted, but we also know that this Overlord isn't going anywhere, so getting a quick scout off would be really important, and we see quite a bit of Hydras and Lynx coming across the map now, and we're not going to be able to scout this before it gets here, so we're pretty much totally in the dark here.
Right. The thing with that, though, is that he did actually get the probe all the way back in the main, so yeah. I feel like it's kind of fine in that case, because you know exactly what Zerg is doing. Zerg can't... There's no way that Zerg is going to have mutas or anything other than Hydras at this point anyways, so... The one thing, though, is that he didn't respond correctly to the scouting, the Hydra heavy mid game. Right. Like, having a lot of zealots is good, but you also need cannons against this. Zerg's tech is a lot later, so you need to defend the initial 5-hatch Hydra bust, because it comes quicker and stronger than a Spire build, essentially.
Yeah. So we did have the scouting information we needed to defend against this, but we did not respond properly. And just having a little bit more presence on the map would have helped with this a little bit. Having our first Corsair on the map a little bit, possibly we could have spotted these before they got here, but we didn't really need to. We should have known that this was a possibility and accounted for it.
Yeah, just like a couple more cannons would have been really good in this case, when you know that Zerg is going heavy on Hydras.
Yeah.
And getting Storm out ASAP as well, I think. Because you can just go like Speed Zealot Templar against this kind of build. And the other thing that he could have done is that there were no overlords. This is actually one of the mistakes I wanted to point out from QuakeCom earlier in the game, is that she never had any vision of Protoss' natural, which is actually a really big problem in ZVT. All right, GG is spelled from our Protoss player. I mean ZVP. Just because they can move Zealots out, they can move extra probes out, they can start +1, they can do all sorts of things, and you need to know what Protoss is up to.
Mm-hmm.
So having an Overlord or Lings in front of their base is really important as a Zerg player, so that you can respond with an appropriate amount of Zerglings.
Yeah, so now we see Zerg take a 2-0 lead in the Race Wars. We had some great games so far. Both games, I love the build that Zerg executed. It wasn't a super late game focused build. It was just more of a straightforward timing attack. And we saw, for the most part, really great execution. Obviously, these are tier 3 players, so they're really new to the game. But seeing them put together a solid timing attack like that is really promising. It shows that they have kind of the learning skills required to go a really long way in StarCraft. It's really that iterative learning process where you execute and then you do some studying and you adjust and then you try and execute again and you adjust again. So yeah, they're really promising build orders so far.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I think she's been playing Zerg for like 2.5, 3 weeks. So I feel like she's doing a really good job.
Yeah,
definitely a player with lots of potential, in my opinion. And looks like she's going to be up against our tier 2 Terran player next, which I believe is Martial from Team Socialized Healthcare. Yeah, Martial's kind of an exciting player. He's going to be playing an Apocalypse match. We have another tier 2 special edition Apocalypse match on June 6th. So that's going to be a TVP against Rufus, and Cryox coaching him for that. So he's also pretty new to the game.
Yeah. All right. In the top left, we have our magenta Zerg. It is QuakeCom. And in the bottom right is the white Terran, Martial. So a little bit about Overwatch. This was a ladder map from 3 or 4 seasons ago, I believe. Pretty popular map.
Wasn't it more recent than that? Wait, it might not have been, because I took a lot of time off and missed like 2 ladder seasons. Never mind.
So the interesting things about this map is that it's 2 players. So in any late game situation, it's going to be pretty easy for Terran to split it in half if they want to go mech or if they want to switch to mech later. But unlike Talcross, there are plenty of high ground third bases for Zerg to take. Usually they just take the one that's, in this case, they'd probably just take 12 o'clock or the top right base. But yeah, there's lots of great expansions for Zerg to take on their side of the map till a point. They have a hard time getting past 4 gas, I feel. So if it's going super late game, it's going to be a little bit harder for Zerg to keep up in expansions. But there are lots of smaller like choke points on the map. Like, for instance, at Terran's Natural, to try and move out on the map, if they try and cross that little bridge, they're just going to get picked at by mutas if they're going Marine Medic, just nonstop. So it's going to be hard for them to get map presence without an overwhelming number of Marine Medic. So there are lots of good high ground and flyer-only positions in the middle of the map from Mutalisk to Micron. So we'll see how Martial decides to take this game. Another interesting thing is that you can wall off your natural as Terran. You can make a link tight wall with 2 depots in a barracks. So if we wanted to see that, if the Terran wanted a little bit more safety going into the early mid game, they could choose to do that. But it looks like it's just going to be super standard barracks in the main base and no gas at 12. So probably just going to be a normal Rax expand. But on the other side of the map, we have a little bit more interesting of a build coming out. It looks like it was a 9 pool with gas. So we're going to be applying some pressure with these early lings. And we haven't decided to go for a natural expansion. It doesn't look like that's on our objective list right now. So here come the first lings. The SCV spots it. So we'll see how Martial decides to react. The SCV stays alive, and it looks like we're just going more lings behind this. We have 5, 6 SCVs pulled to the ramp. So it looks like we're going to try and fit those in the ramp, make a choke point, and prevent the lings from getting into the main base. So this is good reaction from Martial. Perhaps 1 or 2 extra SCVs than necessary, but it's better safe than sorry, especially when we scout that there's just more lings coming on the way. And these SCVs are put on hold position, which is even better. So the lings are having a hard time getting into the main base, not even managing to get one SCV kill and losing 4 lings, and GG is called. So good reaction by Martial, scouting that the lings were coming and reacting just perfectly in time. And unfortunate that there wasn't really a follow-up play from Zerg. Kind of just went all in with the lings there. When we saw the SCVs on the ramp, we could have just pulled back and could have just taken a natural expansion. But we decided that wasn't worth it. We're just going to go all in, which I also respect.
Yeah, 9 pull speed, in my opinion, not really that good of a build against Terran, especially on a map where they have a ramp like that. I mean, if we're thinking something more like match point, where the choke between the main and the natural is a little bit wider, I respect it a little bit more. But I think that QuakeCom hasn't spent a lot of time learning a ZVT yet. So it doesn't surprise me that she pulled that out.
Yeah, when you're playing a player that has some, like, notice that they're like a higher level player than you. If that's in your head a little bit, you tend to go for some strategies like that more often.
Right. I think that actually, I think actually the 2-hatch lurker build would have been a good choice again. To be honest, like, I don't know if Martial watched the previous game, but I did play him in BSL, and I beat him with 2-hatch lurker. So it seemed like he wasn't super strong against that in that build. Although maybe I'm a little biased.
Just a little, yeah, definitely. I mean, dude, I lose to 2-hatch lurker all the time. That build is super strong, and it's not particularly difficult to execute. So, I mean, no shame in winning.
All right, so it looks like we have our first TVP coming here today. We do have our tier 2 Protoss player, which is Inkjet Printer, in the bottom or in the top left, and our tier 2 Terran player, who of course just took out QuakeCom, Martial.
Yeah, so Fighting Spirit, one of the most standard maps there is. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with it. One of the interesting things to note about this particular game are the spawns. We have vertical spawns. So Terran's natural third base is very close to Protoss, so it's going to be quite difficult for Terran to take that base. Another option is that we could instead take the 6 o'clock base as our third base, but obviously that's not ideal. It's a lot more exposed and you have a lot more ground to cover. You really just want to be taking your natural tucked in third base. So already Terran, I would say, is at a small disadvantage. Once Terran scouts the positions that they're in, Martial might decide to just go for a 2-base all-in instead, not try and drag out the game with 3 bases where they're going to be super vulnerable while they take it. And conversely, we'll see if Inkjet Printer decides to pounce on this good stroke of luck and play a more aggressive 2 or 3 base build and try and deny Terran's third. As far as the openings go, though, it's super standard. We have a gas from Terran, so it's going to be a normal factory expansion, most likely. Maybe a 2-fact, but I'd be a little bit more surprised if that were the case. And Protoss is going to get a first scout, so the chances of 2-fact are probably even less now. Standard cyber core timing. Looks like we're not mining gas at the moment. We want to fix that promptly so we can get our goons in goon range.
All right, I've been I don't know a lot about PvT because, of course, I'm a Zerg player, but I have been casting a fair amount lately, so I've been asking Tim to help me a little bit with this matchup, of course, from the Protoss perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely interesting matchup overall. It seems like, to me, timing pushes seem to be really strong as Terran, especially 2-base timing pushes.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, at a tier 3, tier 2 level, like, as you were saying before, like a 5-fact or a 2-base 2-1 seems like a really good decision overall.
Yeah.
Against Protoss. And actually, Models talks about it, like the response a little bit at the masterclass with Ashen. And it seems like if Protoss tries to take a 4th base against one of those 2-base pushes, which I think that a lot of Protoss players like learn that style because they face like 3-base 2-1 a lot. Then it's just like it gets to be really difficult for Protoss because they've been a little bit greedy and they don't have as many units available.
Yeah, definitely. We see the first Zealot coming in, and Marshall was a little bit unprepared for this. We already have the racks floating to get ready to take your natural SimCity. You really don't want to be doing that until you're 100% confident that no Zealot is on the way. Otherwise, you get kind of caught with your pants down like you saw here. But we do have the bunker up at the natural, so if we're able to clear this Zealot soon, we'll be able to retake our natural. But it's a little bit of a race against the clock, because as soon as the goon comes, this army becomes a lot more deadly. So let's see if we can drive back the Zealot now, but it looks like the goon is coming already to connect with the Zealot. And we're doing our best to delay the Marines from getting into the bunker, and if we can engage them now, this would be great. But it looks like Inkjet Printer is just going to pull back for now, seize the Vulture, so we have to play a little bit less greedy in this case. And Terran should know that it's safe to now come down and take that bunker again, but instead we're going to build the command center on the high ground.
How much of a disadvantage is building the command center on the high ground versus the low ground?
It's actually a lot less than people think. A lot of Terrans kind of think of it as like it's the end of the world if they're forced to do this, but I'd say it only costs you 1.5 SCVs in the long run. Like on bottom right of Fighting Spirit, you can wall in your ramp with just a barracks and a factory on the high ground. And so if you do that and you build your command center on the high ground, you're totally safe from any form of vulture aggression. So I love doing that. You only lose like 1 SCV in the long run, and you're totally safe from any proxy gates, forward gates, Zealot first, anything like that. You just get a great advantage. So I think it's smart. A little bit. Okay, so I think it's smart in general to be safe as Terran and build your command center on the high ground. But in this one specific scenario where the Dragoon had backed off and we already have that bunker built, it would have been better just to go take that bunker because we already built it. We already spent the early resources to get it out there.
Right.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter much in the long run.
I mean, it's kind of like when I see like lower level Protoss players and they're kind of doing the math to see if they can figure out if they can build their Nexus before their cannon. Right. They run Forge Fast Expand, and I'm like, just build your cannon because sometimes you're going to die to Lings, and if you just build your cannon, you won't die to Lings.
Yeah.
Right?
It's a small optimization that you make as you grow as a player and you have that ability to do that scouting. But it's certainly not a requirement to play Protoss that you are able to take advantage of every small optimization like that. It's really more of a high level thing, but obviously if you're able to do it and you have that scouting information, then you should start to take advantage of it so that you learn to scout better over time. You can't always just play super safe as you're growing as a player, but yeah.
Right. That particular situation though, it's like, it depends on the spawn of the map, whether or not you can do that against Overpool, because it depends on the rush distance. So I don't know. I feel like it's tricky.
Yeah,
for sure.
So you have to make that cost benefit analysis to see whether it's worth it. But yeah. One thing I want to point out real quick, because this is something I struggled with quite a bit and continue to struggle with as a Terran player. But just the importance of your factory placement in your main base. If we could go look at those factories, they're a little bit awkwardly placed. You see the units coming out of them have to go through the mining SCVs of the gas. And then we have our depots kind of in the front of our base, close to where our exit is. I'd actually love for the factories and the depots to be swapped in this case, so that your factories are close to your ramp and your depots are tucked back in your base where you don't have to interact with them really. And so we'll see as we get into the mid and late game. If once we get up to 5 or 8 or 10 factories, it's going to be more and more awkward for us to continue producing. And as we get up to like 15 or however many depots we're going to build this game, we're going to run out of space, I'm predicting. So just another small thing that you have to learn when you play this accursed game called Brood War.
All right, we do see that Protoss is going to be taking a third base off of 3 gateways, I think. So not greedy. Just very standard. Yeah. It seems like Protoss is supply blocked right now and actually floating a lot of money. I'm not sure exactly what happened. I wasn't watching his build super closely, but it seems like Terran is spending his money a lot better in this situation because the supply is actually really quite close. And it seems like the opening actually went pretty okay for Protoss, right?
Yeah, I think Protoss is a little bit mixed up with their build right now. I mean, you saw that they built 2 robotics facilities, so unless they're planning to go some all-out double shuttle, double reaver type build, I think that was probably a mistake. And we also are teching 2 arbiters at the same time, and we also got our robotics add-on bay. So I think our build is a little bit confused. We're kind of going in all directions at once right now. Like we want to go for reavers with shuttles, and we also want to go for arbiters, and we also have this third base. I'd like to see a little bit more focus from the build order out of Protoss. Maybe if we want to go for these reavers with shuttle, we go for that right away, and then later we tech arbiters. But as it stands, we're kind of drawn thin. We see a little bit of vulture harassment at the third, but it gets deflected properly. And from Terran, it looks just about as standard as can be also. We are, it looks like we're floating a command center to bottom middle. Is that what I'm seeing there? Oh, no, sorry. That's eBay.
No, so, I mean, it looks like he's planning on building the third command center.
Yeah, we had that there for a long time.
Been there for a while. Yeah. I'm not sure what's going on.
But like I said earlier, these spawns make it really difficult for Terran to take this third base, so I'm not even opposed to the idea of taking your time, slowly leapfrogging siege tanks over there, getting that missile turret ahead of time. So yeah, I'm not super opposed to this by any means, but I would have liked to seen that third base just get built earlier in the main base, and then as soon as we feel safe, we can float it out. But yeah.
Right, I actually hardly ever see Terran build their third base like on location unless something's gone right for them early game. Is that pretty simple?
Yeah, I would say if you're a lower level player, you should almost never be building it on site, just because of the decision making required to make that decision is a little bit high level. I like, even I'd never feel safe taking it on site, even when I've gotten that early game advantage. Just because it feels like at any moment Protoss can just march 12 goons up your ramp and kill you, which is a feeling you have to overcome at some point as a Terran player. But yeah, it's not super uncommon. Like if you open with mines as like vulture mines and you're able to get that map control, you're pretty much free to take it on site as long as you start preparing with siege tanks afterwards. Especially if Protoss opened with some sort of tech build where they're delaying their observers. In that case, it's pretty safe to take it on your third site actually. But like I said, it's a pretty hard decision to make as a Terran player, so just building it in your main base is usually worth it 9 times out of 10. Looks like we're going for DT drops, which I like. I love actually
going like DT drops
mid-game DT drops and not rushing.
Do you like DT drops though?
No, okay, well, let's just to pick a little bit interesting vocabulary, but in a larger game sense, I approve of this decision. It's actually a DT Reaver drop. This is unexpected. So, like I said, our build
got all the tech,
but I do like it. Unfortunately, our shuttle Reaver micro is not optimal. And okay, so like I said, I like the mid-game DT drop idea. A lot of times, Protoss can just load up 4 DTs in a shuttle at like 10 minutes when you're not expecting it and just go snipe your armories. But if you're doing Reaver drops, I think it's a little bit more important that you're timely with those. Once Terran has this huge tank count, you can't even drop that Reaver without it just getting popped in 1 or 2 shots. So having that timing with the Reaver is a little bit more important in my eyes. But I like the idea, if only for the novelty.
Very good. Okay, it does look like we have Inkjet taking a 4th base.
Yeah.
I guess it was... He didn't take it earlier because he was teching. I guess if you're going to play super standard, you get that 4th base a little bit faster against 2 base or 3 base 2-1.
Yeah. Well, also as Protoss, we didn't see that command center come down, and
right.
As long as we don't see a 3rd command center, I would be pretty wary of throwing down a 4th base. But this is pretty proper. We see the Terran building up a lot of SimCity and prepping to take that 3rd base, so we can just safely take our 4th, keep getting our arbiter count up. And keep making Dragoons, and we can kind of delay our mass swell of Zealots until we're ready to face the Terran army coming out. But obviously, since this is a 3rd base, we can just keep making Goons if we want to.
Right. I noticed that Protoss supply is actually quite a bit stronger than Terran supply right now. Is this pretty typical, or do we have like low on SCVs or something?
Yeah, so a 40 or 50 supply lead right now isn't completely insurmountable as Terran, but it's not
Yeah,
where
it
you
just seems
want to
strange
be.
to me because Martial seems to be spending his money a lot better than
Yeah,
Protoss.
I'd be curious to check his SCV production. Perhaps we had some lapses in it early game, but it looks like he has pretty good saturation now. Um, as we're transferring to our third base, our income is definitely going to shoot up, and so we'll be able to throw down more factories. But yeah, I would say we're a little bit low just from how the game has gone so far. We could probably be up a little bit more supply, but a big supply lead like this in the mid game isn't completely insurmountable as Terran. Obviously, as soon as both armies are maxed out, things get somewhat equalized. But it wouldn't be ideal to continue to let Inkjet Predator start banking up resources. Like as soon as he maxes out and starts banking, that's when you kind of run into issues because it's not impossible to beat this first army, but the second and third and fourth wave is where you start to get worn down as Terran. So trying to punish the Protoss before they can start banking up is important, but we won't be able to do it this game since our max out timing is going to be significantly later. This also means that all the arbiters that are coming out are going to be high in energy. So just some things to watch out for as the Terran player here.
All right, looks like we're just laying some mines over the bridge. I'm guessing this means Terran is getting ready to push.
Probably not yet, actually. I think this is kind of just more of a movement to try and move out and claim their bridge and get the army across the bridge. Because if you get engaged while you're moving across the bridge, you can just get surrounded in a huge arc and just lose everything. But I'm a little bit concerned about laying mines directly on your bridge like that. Because like I said, if Protoss takes that army and your army is on those mines, you're just going to lose everything instantly. So I think it would have been better to try and leapfrog siege tanks out over time so that we can slowly take our bridge, and then we can lay mines a little bit like to the east of our bridge or to the north of our bridge, depending on where we want to attack. In this case, I think laying them to the east of our bridge and then attacking north is probably the proper move out timing or move out army movement as Terran.
Right.
But yeah, I'm concerned about this mine placement.
Yeah, it makes sense. We did see another DT drop come in from Inkjet. I think there was one dropped at the third and one dropped in the main, but I think that Martial only lost about like 6 or 7 SCVs total.
That's good.
So I think both the DTs got cleaned up. I didn't see if
I'm glad that Protoss is doing their best to keep Terran honest. And speaking of, we see an Arbiter poking around looking for a recall, but smartly decides to back off seeing so many turrets. And it can probably just loop around and come in from the bottom side. But we have the vessels. Oh, the EMP was amazing directly on the Arbiter. So that's going to be turned down for now. And actually, this is amazing because we're just about to max out. And once we EMP an Arbiter, that gives us a great timing window to attack because that's 2 less stasis or 1 less recall we have to worry about. So if we can get this army across the bridge and prepare to move out, we would be in a great position. But we're a little bit trapped inside our bridge, and we have those mines on the bridge, which are just really I don't want to be too harsh, but that's actually just the worst spot to have them because that's where you need to place your army to prepare to take your bridge. But it looks like it might not even come to that. We have the Arbiter finding a hole in the Terran base. Going to be a little bit surprised to see these depots here. Probably was expecting to recall on top of the factories, but we're going to be able to loop up northwards. And now we're going to see how these depots. Oh, well, this recall actually isn't that big, but the Terran army is going to have such a hard time getting back into the main base to defend this.
Right, because the depots are in the way. I mean, he did know kind of the position of the depots because he kept dropping early game.
Yeah.
So he does know where everything is. But he did manage to find a window, like you were saying. Looks like we're going to target down the command center and an armory.
Yeah, definitely worthwhile pickoffs. A lot of times you'll see Protoss kind of drop in the back of the base and start picking out depots, but ironically, because they're so close to the ramp, that's not an option. But it is much easier for Protoss now to just recall on top of the production facilities. But it looks like we're going to defend this no problem. And I'd love to see Terran just take his whole army and move out right now. Obviously, we have a small timing window where Protoss just threw away some units. And we didn't really lose any army supply defending that. And we see the Protoss player already up to almost 10k minerals, 2k gas. So it's not just the first army that we have to fight against. It's going to be the next 5 that come out. However, Protoss really isn't taking advantage of this free space and time, and isn't building up a huge gateway count. We have some more in the second main base, but I'd really love to see a couple more Stargates. We see the Templar production, which is great also, but this army is a little bit small from Protoss. I wonder if we have where our supplies tied up in right now, because we're maxed out. That first EMP doesn't look like a hit, so we still have stasis available.
But true, it did hit a lot of the army though. EMP, of course, delete shield for Protoss as well, not just energy on Arbiters. And it looks like the second one hit the Arbiter, although I think it might have already cast the spell.
We have so much supply, but I just don't see any army. It looks like we only have 2 control groups of army, or at least we did before we lost it all. But we're maxed out. We must have units somewhere. We may just have too many probes. But yeah, it looks like we have a lot of AFK, Zealots, and Templar. Looks like our rally points are mixed up. We just have units left and right, and we're not able to consolidate an army and take an engagement.
All right, and we do have Marshall is going to come up and siege the natural of Protoss with this big mech army, of course. This is a scary army from Terran. The whole strength of Terran is to have those tanks and the vultures, and Protoss needs multiple armies to kill this. So it looks like he's going to try and surround. Like you say, he does have gates at the other main, so he's able to kind of rally in units from another location.
Yeah, but unable to break that position. So it looks like Protoss is going to have to sacrifice the top left. We'll see to what extent Terran wants to push it, if they just want to contain at the natural, or if they want to push in and start killing gateways. But like I mentioned earlier, there's other gateways at the other main base, so we have to make a decisive decision as Terran here what we want to do. Either you can just contain at the natural, or you can push in, or you can start trying to kill expansions.
Right. It looks like Marshall actually still spending his money pretty well during those engagements. But he didn't move his rallied units across the map. There's a whole bunch of units sitting at the natural. So I think these bullets can actually clean up these tanks, which is actually pretty unfortunate for Terran, because he does have the rally of vultures he needed to protect those units.
Yeah, we have half our army sitting in our natural expansion, and we got completely flanked by those invisible zealots. We need to have mines on all the flanking paths, just late game TVP, I'll be honest about it, it's a complete nightmare because there's so many things you always need to be doing. But one of the biggest priorities is laying mines nonstop, because you get so much value out of mines. And we have like a whole control group of tanks there sieged at the natural, but we lose it all in an instant because we don't have mines flanking, and we just lose it to zealots. So tanks are amazing, and they're the linchpin of the Terran army, but unsupported, they are not effective. And you need to have constant mine coverage to defend them. So we had that amazing position at the Protoss natural. We were ready to set up and contain, but we lost it at the last second to those flanking zealots. So the one big positional advantage that Terran had is now not really a factor any longer. So we're going to have to see Terran probably take an expansion from here and play a super late game strategy. All right.
Yeah, it looks like he's doing just like that. I think he's taking 6 o'clock.
Yeah. He is, but we don't have any defenses down there, and we already see zealots coming in to harass, which is great from Inkjet. So late game TVP is just about covering so many different weaknesses. Like, you have all these different weak points, and you need to have coverage at all of them. Mines is like the most important part about this, is just having mines everywhere. They provide you vision, and they obviously defend against things just like zealot run-bys, etc. So we really need more mine coverage from the Terran player. We see the complete east side of the map. We have no vision at all as Terran. Units could just come down to our 6 o'clock nonstop, and we'd have no idea they're coming. So we're really playing in the dark here. But it looks like Protoss wants to take an engagement directly into the sieged Terran army, which I think is a little bit foolhardy of them. If they knew how little vision that Terran had, they'd probably be more conducive. No, they'd be more open to the idea of just playing a counterattack game and not really engaging nonstop. But it looks like Protoss really wants to break this one position, and it looks like it's not going well at all. So it looks like Protoss is kind of playing into the hands of the Terran player and attacking in them at their most defended point, instead of trying to go for the 6 o'clock base, which is totally undefended. But it looks like there's a recall going off there anyways, which is great. Looks like we're going to deny this position for now. There's only vultures here to defend, and so we might even be able to kill the command center. Yeah, that command center is going down. So Terran once again undefended, and Protoss was able to exploit the weakness. And it's not even a scan coming down, so these additional reinforcements are getting picked off too. And it looks like the Terran player is starting to crumble. Nice mine hits, though.
Right. One of the strengths of Protoss in this matchup is, of course, kind of like the strength of Zerg in both of their non-mirrors, is the fact that the army is more mobile, so you can counterattack.
Right.
Whereas, like, Terran army, like especially mech armies, are really slow, and they kind of have to stay all together, otherwise they lose their strength. So it really reminds me of the way you play a macro game, ZBT against mech, where you just need to take expansions and just be where Terran isn't, and try and counterattack to make them come home.
Yeah. So like when we attacked into that position as Protoss near our natural bridge, we basically completely played into the hands of the Terran. We played to their strengths instead of trying to play to their weakness, which is your ability to choose exactly where the engagement happens. And instead we played on Terran's terms, so we took a terrible engagement there. But if we look at the next couple of engagements that happened, we caught Terran off guard, not completely sieged or in positions they weren't ready for, and we were able to decisively win. So it really goes to show you how important your decision making is as Protoss, and you have to really play to your advantage that you get to pick where the engagement happens. And the positions that are worse for Protoss are when they're forced to take engagements in positions they don't want to, like when Terran is able to leapfrog tanks up to their natural, and they're able to build up a huge SimCity of depots and turrets and stuff. When Protoss's hand is forced, that's when they're taking the worst engagements possible. So it's important for Protoss not to play into the strengths. It's just important in StarCraft in general to know exactly what your strengths are and to play into them.
Right. I guess what you're talking about is kind of like assessing the situation that you're in and what your advantages, like what advantages do you have in your situation?
Yeah.
Right. With the type of armor you have, or the type of economy you have, or how many units you have at the moment. So definitely, definitely.
It's like the killing blow from Protoss. Well, okay. A little bit underwhelming recall, but the idea was good. The Terran player has so little army that they're not able to really defend every spot at once. So, like I said, taking an engagement where the Terran isn't ready, like in their main base, is perfect. It's really the power of recall. And we see that Protoss is taking advantage of this chaos by taking another main base at bottom right, which is also great. You always, as Protoss against Terran, in general, every time that you attack, you also want to expand. And it's not obviously a complete 100% rule, but it's good to think about as you go into the mid and late game, that when you attack and you trade units into the Terran army, they're unable to put aggression on you unless they decisively win that engagement. So attack and expand should always kind of come together, in my opinion. Nice EMP. But
all right, just barely keeping that vessel alive. Yeah. One thing about Inkjet's recalls that I wanted to mention is that I think he could target a little bit better. He seems to kind of just like recall his units and then leave them to do whatever they want. But I think if you are doing a recall or a drop, if you just like take a quick look and be like, okay, what can I actually kill with this drop, and then target that. Those mines that you talked about earlier going off, as Protoss comes in and the game just the Terran at the natural. I think this might be the killing blow.
Yeah, Terran does not have a deep enough siege line to really prevent him from losing all those tanks. He can still hold at the natural at this point, but probably won't be worth it, seeing as Protoss is managing to expand all over the map. Protoss kind of just suiciding units in, but the damage is already done at this point. The third base is the only mining base that Terran has. Terran won't even have enough minerals to make another army, so Protoss is just free to take every expansion on the map, and we're just we're holed up in our 3 bases, and we'll just starve in there.
Right.
As long as we're not able to sneak this expansion, but there's already the GT there, so.
Right. There is. I just want to point out though that like, despite some positional errors, I think that Martial had very good macro this game. Like you were saying, like there might have been SCVs missed at the beginning of the game because it seemed like he was a little bit low on money mid game. Seeing how he was spending it, and he was still very below supply on a Protoss who kind of did a bit of a wonky build. But I mean, overall, like you were saying, that just that position at the natural, like if he had been able to rally his units and just keep that position and hold that position and not lose all those tanks, I think this game would have looked very different.
Yeah, he had a winning position at one point during the game, so there's something to be said for that. But the ability to get that winning position and then the ability to recognize that you have it and then capitalize on it perfectly are two completely different things. And you'll find yourself, as you learn this game, you'll find yourself in winning positions over and over again, and you will throw them constantly. And it's an extremely frustrating learning experience, but it's super important because you can just luck your way into a winning position. Like you can just have a build order win, and you're in a super solid position, but that's just kind of random chance. At that point, you have to have the ability to recognize that position and realize what your strengths are and play to them, and kind of like keep in mind what your opponent's possible win conditions could be and just cross them off the list one by one. And like you're in that strong position with all those tanks. Okay, how could I lose this? Well, 12 invisible zealots could come out of nowhere and just flank me. So I need these mines. I need some detection, things like that. But yeah, solid game from both sides. Congratulations to Inkjet. And we'll be moving on to the next one.
All right, and looks like we're going to have another ZVP on Bloody Ridge. So
you're asking the wrong person. As soon as I see the ladder maps come out, I veto all the 2-player maps instantly. I'm out of here. I'm not doing it.
Oh, I said we're seeing a ZVP on Bloody Ridge.
Well, I know. I'm just saying I have no idea what this map is, and the name is in Korean, so you're asking the wrong person.
Oh, I'm always scared about this map because I call it like half the time I call it, well, okay, 33% of the time I call it Bloody Ridge.
Yeah.
The other 33% of the time I call it Crossing Field, and then the other half the time I call it Heartbreak Ridge. So it's just like I have a 33% chance of getting the name right. So I'm always like, am I saying the right name? I'm not sure if I'm saying the right name because all of these maps are 2-player and beige, and I just get their names mixed up. Doesn't help that 2 of them are ridges either. Like, what the heck?
Yeah, seriously, what are you guys thinking? Map makers.
Terrible map naming. Only.
We have good map makers, but do we have good map namers?
Definitely not.
I don't know.
Yeah. Anyhow, so this map for ZVP I think is a little tricky. I think mutas are pretty strong on this map in general.
Yeah.
And I think kind of the key that I've seen in like tier 2, tier 3 games on this map is whether or not if the Zerg players planning on playing a macro game, whether or not they try and take a high ground fourth, or if they take one of the corner bases. Because in my opinion, you pretty much have to take one of the corner bases, and if you don't, you just end up stuck in your base forever.
Yeah.
All right, so we do have our Protoss player Inkjet just eliminated the tier 2 Terran Martial in the top right, and our Zerg player Bojack in the bottom left. Bojack, of course, very strong ZVP in general. We did have him play a best of 9 against IRK Ashen, which he took 7-2. So I think in general in that series, we saw that his 9-7-3 and 9-7-3-4 builds are quite strong. And his defense against early Zealots was pretty good as well, as far as like 2-gate builds go. His 3-hatch Spire, 5-hatch Hydra seemed a little bit weaker. I think he lost to 8-gate twice on in that series. So, I mean, the macro for mid-game with that build, and like I was saying before when we had Quick Complain, that build is just difficult to execute in the early game, and then it's kind of difficult to get a handle on the macro in the mid-game as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw 9-7-3 on this map, but I also know that Inkjet likes gate first. So I'm not sure what we're going to see out of him either, and how Bojack responds to gate first, because Ashen didn't play gate first at all.
Okay, cool. Interesting. Yeah, one of the cool things about this format, the best of one formats in general, is that we kind of see players fall back to their most like basic, comfortable builds for the most part. Or we see some players, on the other hand, in best of ones, decide to pull out cheese or some kind of crazy all-in. So it's interesting to see how players adapt to this format. But it looks like it's going to be a gate first coming out of Inkjet. We're going to see a little bit of zealot pressure, perhaps. And we'll see how Bojack responds to this.
Yeah, this is definitely, I've been working on this the last little bit. I I was doing okay against it at the beginning of the season, but lately my response to Gate Expand has broken again. It's quite difficult to deal with as the Zerg player.
Yeah.
It's not only just like defending the Zealots at the beginning of the game, but it's also just like deciding if you have to build enough lings to defend the Zealots. But if you build the lings and you don't kill the Zealots, then you have too many lings and you have drones, so you're kind of behind. Or if you build, especially if you build like too many lings for the Zealots and then don't kill the Zealots, then Protoss is ahead. And then if you just don't build lings and they move across the map, you die. So it's kind of a tricky situation, and Protoss can also still tech fairly quickly off of this build. So it gets difficult in that way as well if you miss your tech timings. But I think if I'm not mistaken, it looks like Inkjet's not moving across the map with his units really.
Well,
Maybe one.
he lost his first scouting probe, and a lot of your DPS with your first zealot comes actually from your probe. So losing that puts him on the back foot. Obviously, it also prevents him from scouting and seeing how many lings are coming out. So he feels a little bit safer to just hold back for now, which I think is good. If you had moved out with these zealots, you almost certainly would have just lost them or just died to a counterattack. So having the peace of mind and just staying safe with the zealots at the wall is good. It looks like we lost another scouting probe actually, so we're still completely in the dark. And this wall.
Oh man, he didn't have his zealots in the wall, right? And even though he went forge first and he's going to have his cannon quickly, the lings are still going to get through easily, and no probes are pulled at all in response to seeing the lings. So I think that this is actually just going to be game over for our Protoss player. Zerg got a really fast link speed, and didn't block the wall. And
yep.
Bojack, of course, is Keen's student.
Yeah, these gateway first openers are a little bit susceptible to dying to lings like this. Obviously, this was kind of an unforced error, and if we had just had a proper wall in, this wouldn't have happened. But I see a lot of lower level players go for gateway first, and they overestimate their position and lose too many zealots and die to the ling all-in that comes out.
Right.
So definitely.
Yeah, and it's definitely like on a map like this where you don't have a really good wall. Like you saw, like he wasn't able to block his wall with the zealots. If he was in a position where he was able to block his wall with the zealots, he did go forge first and he got a cannon right away. So I feel like that could have gone a lot better for him. But I feel like on a map where you just like you don't have a really good wall, it's pretty unwise to go gate first, because I think at like tier 2, tier 3 levels, you're going to see a lot of Zergs try and ling all in.
I'm almost certain
because it's such a nightmare to deal with in the mid game.
Yeah, I'm almost certain that there's a better wall that you can do on that map. I've seen PVZs on that map where the wall is not in that unfortunate position. I think actually the two zealots were unable to block that no matter where they were placed. Like between the gateway and the pylon like that, there was like 2 hexes, I think. So I don't think.
Yeah, that's I think you're right actually.
So yeah, I think it may just be unfamiliarity with the map, which is unfortunate to lose a game like that, but every mistake in StarCraft can be a fatal one, so you got to be airtight.
Yeah, or ling tight.
Are particles of air smaller or larger than a Zergling, though? That's the real question, because I've seen some greased up Zerglings that can just fit in anywhere. It looks like there's no way to prevent them.
I think it depends on who Zerglings they are.
Yeah, if there's sulky Zerglings, probably.
Yeah. All right. Our next map is going to be Eddie, and we have both our tier 2 players eliminated except for our Zerg. So we're gonna have our tier 1 or tier 2 Zerg Bojack up against our tier 1 Terran player Crazy. Yeah.
Crazy is a Terran player from Passion Daddies, which is a team that I help assistant coach for. So I have a little bit of experience helping him out with his replays, helping him out with his games. He's super solid. He has an eye for improvement. He's constantly asking questions and trying to get help. So that's really promising. And yeah, he's had some solid results so far. So I'm looking forward to see what he brings out on this map. So yeah, speaking of, we were talking a little bit earlier about the map naming. I'm glad that this map's name has colloquially been shortened to Eddie instead of just calling it In the Way of an Eddy constantly. That name is just too long, too many syllables, too many words. Eddie is a lot shorter and sweeter, in my opinion. So good job, Quarantine.
100%. Right.
An interesting thing about this map is that our main base is on the low ground, so we have to claim a ramp before we're able to take our natural expansion. So if we wanted to see something like 9 pool from Zerg, I'd actually kind of support it on this map, but it looks like that won't be the case. Well, actually, I should wait for a couple more minerals before I claim that. It looks like it actually... Oh.
He built an overlord. So.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I was like, is this a drone? Is this a drone? Drone? No. Okay.
All right. So yeah, I think that I haven't actually seen Bojack's CVT or Crazy's TVZ, so I'm curious about what it's going to look like. I think both of them are kind of macro players, but I actually expect Bojack to go for 2 hatchery play. Just because, like we were saying before, he is Keen's student and Keen likes 2 hatchery play. So I'm expecting Bojack to do the same thing.
Yeah, I think AZT is a little bit more a fan of Goliath timings. So I'm expecting... Oh yeah, we see the gas coming in now. So it looks like we're going to be going... my guess is we're going to go for a Goliath timing here. That might also be a little bit a product of me because a lot of lower level Terrans that struggle with TVZ, I know it's hard to believe, but they exist. I usually just point them in the direction of Goliath timings, just because it's super simple to execute. They take almost no micro at all, and it's just about hitting your macro timings, so it teaches you those fundamentals. So yeah, I'm happy to see that coming out from Crazy. But we're going to have some 2-hatch play coming from Bojack. Yeah, I'm like a little bit OP. And so this is going to be an interesting matchup. Typically, when I'm playing Goliath build, I feel super happy when I see 2-hatch Muta. You're just able to defend it no problem with ranged Goliaths. And if Zerg isn't able to scout this soon enough and go for that like 2.5 hatch style play, they're going to have not very much larva production for a long time. So we're going to see how good Bojack's scouting is here in the next couple of minutes.
Right. I definitely kind of agree with you there. And I've heard kind of different things. Like I haven't explored all the styles of 2-hatch Muta yet, but one of the reasons that I like 3-hatch Muta in some cases is that I feel like it's good against mech. Like I feel like you just have drones and you have money.
Yeah.
And you can just get hatcheries and bases and then you can just get units. And I feel like the main thing with mech is just having units. You just need to have lots of units as Zerg and lots of bases. And it feels like 2-hatch Muta is really precarious against that.
Definitely.
But we'll see how Bojack plays this. I know that he 2-0'd Queen recently in CPL, who really likes to play mech. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, obviously he's practiced against the Goliath build. And I know he's a really strong tier 2 Zerg player. So I'm excited to see what he brings against Crazy, who obviously has very good macro.
Yeah. We should know from the Overlord scouting at the Natural that the Command Center came down late enough that it wasn't Rax expand. So we see this Sunken Colony come up from Zerg. So Bojack is definitely aware of the possibility of the Vulture and gets confirmation now. But unfortunately, this Vulture looks like it's going to be able to get some free Zergling kills. We made... Oh, nice. Okay, we made 3 sets of Zerglings, and losing them all for free here would be pretty unfortunate. Not a game ender, obviously, but definitely not what you want as an ideal. Having that map presence with just Zerglings so that you can scout for things that are coming is always a plus. But yeah, we're going to lose them. And yeah, just to talk a little bit more about what you said about Zerg versus mech, I think the most important part is Zerg is knowing that you're safe for, or at least scouting the necessary things to know that you're safe against that Goliath timing and just droning hard until the Goliath timing hits and then starting that unit production so that you have either mass Muta or Muta Hydra.
Right.
You're able to take that engagement. But I see a lot of Zergs, when they're put in this position, they kind of go back and forth. They make some Hydras, then they make some drones, then they make some Mutas, and then they make some drones. And then when that huge timing comes out, the 2 timings, the +1 armor timing, and then the 1/1 timing, if they don't die to the first one, they die to the second one because they just don't have enough drones to keep up that.
Yeah, enough economy. Yeah, I think there's like Zerg a lot of times to try and stop the Goliath timing is gonna panic because it's hard to stop.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of times, like you were saying, Zerg just start building units instead of drones. And I think that Zerg doesn't realize that that's really all in. Like, you can choose to play that way and go a lot of units, like unit heavy in the beginning, but you have to actually push Terran's natural and do damage if you're planning on playing like that.
Yeah.
You can't just kind of like sit back and defend their push. And then you can be like, yay, I broke the push. But actually, you're in a really rough position because you don't have the economy, like you're saying, to actually back it up and go into a late game.
Yeah, we saw Crazy. He has those vultures out in front, and he knew the muta timing was coming out soon, so he decided to dive in and try and get some drones. But Bojack had really good SimCity at the natural and prevented that from happening. But we retreat with the vultures, and we keep one alive, which is good. However, it's not going to stop this drone from coming out and taking a third base. So mutas are on the other side of the map now. We'll see if Goliath range is done. Not quite. Also, we don't have any turrets here, so it's possible that we lose more SCVs than we should. We'll see how good Bojack's muta micro is. But he has a small timing window right here where Goliaths don't have range and there's no turrets, where he can get super free SCV kills without taking much damage. I'd like to see him use that a little bit more, but...
Right, we do see Crazy is adding turrets now, and Bojack is taking a third base. Looks like he's going to get some SCVs now. The Goliaths are a little bit out of position, but the turrets are also about to finish. So he's kind of taking some extra damage on his mutas that he didn't need to take. Of course, he doesn't lose any of them. So still in a good position as Zerg. And we see that Bojack is actually not going for a muta play. We saw him get the Hydra Den really quickly, and he's getting an Evo Chamber as well. So this is kind of like the 5 muta first mech build, where you just get the 5 mutas with 2 etch muta, and then you see they're going mech, so you just transition to Hydras.
Yeah, this is what I think that most Zerg should be doing. I think this is the most powerful response from Zerg, in my opinion. Going all in with mutas is very powerful, and you have the possibility of doing game-ending damage, but as soon as vessels come out, you're just totally obliterated. And going for like a control group of mutas than Hydras just feels a little bit weaker to me, but we can't be losing our muta lists like this in the middle of the map, so we have to be careful with these 5 mutas. Obviously, it's not super important because it's just 5, but if we're not putting any sort of pressure on Terran, he's free to just move out on the map like this. And we don't have any sunken colonies at our third base, so if Terran finds it, we don't have the Hydras to defend. So we have to be a little bit more present with these mutalisks and delay this push, because we really don't have the proper defense yet. Hydras are just popping at the natural now.
Right. I think that like actually having sunks at these bases helps a lot. Like Goliaths are pretty bad against sunks in general.
Yeah.
Just getting these overlords for free, actually, by the way, is really bad for Zerg. You don't want to be losing overlords in this situation at all. And he does lead the mutas out in the back. And this Goliath timing turning out to be very strong from Crazy in general.
Yeah, already at this point we've traded so effectively that I would think that we should just move home as Crazy T. We don't need to do any more damage here. We killed all the mutalisks, and we killed a bunch of Hydras, but he's going to actually move to the third base and find that there are no sunken colonies here, so we're free to just kill these drones. But most likely at some point, Zerg is going to have enough Hydralisks to fight this army, so I am a little bit concerned if Crazy just kind of traps his units. However, we're so supply blocked that there's no Hydralisks in production at all, so actually, conversely, we're just going to be able to get these kills for free.
Right. I think that, like, I think Bojack underestimated the Terran timing a little bit. I actually think I'm not sure about the Hydra timing with you, or like you were talking about. Like, I don't mind the 5 muta build, but I feel like mass muta is actually really strong. You can just double expand and get like 4 gases, and then go mass muta. And I feel like you can counterattack a lot easier with mass muta than you can with Hydras.
Definitely.
If you build Hydras, you're kind of relying on holding the push. But if you go mass muta, you can actually delay it a lot more, and I feel like that's like a much more commanding position for Zerg. And then because you're building mutalisks, you kind of have the money left over, and you can just go ahead and throw down like 3 sunks to each base and be safe from the Goliath push.
Yeah, they're both certainly viable ways to play the game, and you'll see Zerg players of all levels, even professional Zerg players, playing both strategies. So certainly they're both totally viable. But we see now Bojack is going to be able to clean up these Goliaths, it looks like, with these Hydra reinforcements. So at least for now, we're not in any threat of dying, but we're also just lost 2 hatcheries and we lost our 3rd gas. So we're pretty crippled from a production point of view.
Right. He does have like
3 hatcheries, yeah.
I think he's on 3
hatcheries, so we just have no unit production right now, and Terran's just going to be able to build up another army and come smash us pretty much. We already have 2 tanks.
And we do see like Bojack doesn't have the economy to be able to tech transition at all. He's basically stuck on pure Hydra right now, and Crazy knows this, so he's able to mix in some siege tanks, which absolutely shred Hydras. So
also, we're going super heavy on vultures here. If Zerg had more production and could do like a big round of Mutalisks, we would actually be in a bad spot right here. But because we killed those 2 hatcheries and we killed all those overlords, we kind of know that's off the table. So I think that's kind of a cool move from Crazy. But as time goes on and Zerg makes more hatcheries, we need to make more Goliaths just so we don't die to a big Muta transition. Because we should know that we're so far ahead. We just have to account for like the weird fringe possibilities that could kill us and account for those. So, but we see the starport already done. We're going to get our science facility soon, and we're taking our 3rd base, so our 3rd gas is coming up. So we're just going to have insane production, insane tech from Terran, and Zerg is just in a terrible position here. Our income is all messed up. We have 1,500 gas, but no minerals at all, so we're totally lopsided on our economy.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's really tricky. If you're on 3 hatch Hydra, of course you only need 1 gas to support that. So that's why his like gas production is all like imbalanced like this.
Yeah.
You were talking about the Muta switch. When you do that 5 Muta build as Zerg with 2H Muta, you actually don't get a Muta upgrade. So I think that he doesn't even really have the potential to do a Muta switch because he doesn't have an upgrade for his Mutalisks.
It certainly wouldn't be a good transition for him, but in these kind of Hail Mary scenarios, you have to find if we just go straight up Hydralisk here, we need to take a miracle engagement to win. But if we went for a Muta transition, even though we're not upgraded and it's not ideal, there's still no weird possibility that we could just take a one-off engagement and wipe the army. But obviously, the strategy that you do from this position is going to be like an ideal one. So you got to cut your losses and try something. But we see this great vulture harassment. Zerg army is already so spread thin that any harassment like this is going to do crippling damage. And this is
and Bojack just can't
actually. Our first hydras were on the high ground, so a lot of those tank shots missed, but there's just not enough hydras here.
Yeah. I mean, we did see like Bojack's plan here was to try and get queens out, which I think was like quite a big mistake because you're never going to have enough time to actually get your spawn broodling and your queens with your energy unless you actually have your bases set up and you've like already taken a couple engagements from Terran. So that's kind of like a later transition. But I mean, he was in a very difficult position after not really holding that first Goliath push and losing his 3rd base.
Yeah.
So can't really blame him.
All I think he needed to defend that was 1 or 2 Sunkens at his 3rd base and his Hydra timing to be more exact. Like his Hydras were popping out right in the face of the Terran army. And if they had all been popped out already by the time the army got there, we probably could have taken that engagement. But unfortunate timing from Zerg, and he was pretty much punished for it as hard as he could be. So it is what it is.
Yeah, I think he made maybe a couple too many drones in that case. Like I really like that he was droning after he built his Mutalisk, but I think he maybe made like 5 too many drones and didn't have Hydralisks quite soon enough, like you were saying, to deal with that. That Goliath push from Terran just comes out so fast.
Yep. So we get a Terran victory, and we'll be moving into a TVP next against the Tier 1 Protoss player who is
Cold Warp Gates.
Oh yeah, it's Cold Warp Gates.
It is Cold Warp Gates. I think that I think Crazy's favorite here. We did see Warp Gates chose Crazy to play against him in the Models Masterclass. So and like when I asked somebody to play in a masterclass, I asked them to pick an opponent that will probably beat them, that they'll probably lose to. so that you can actually have a loss to review with a coach, because it's very difficult to, or it's not, I feel like, as good to review a win on stream as it is to review a loss. So I asked him to pick a strong opponent that they have difficulty defeating, and he did pick Crazy. So I feel like probably Crazy's pretty favored here, especially on match point.
Yeah, I could see that being the case for sure. Cold War Gates, though, has pretty strong PvT in the macro games. He's on my team, so I've been helping him out somewhat with the matchup. And sometimes he struggles with his pro production a little bit, but his overall game plan and decision making is somewhat strong. So if he's able to hit his macro, I think he's going to be able to give Crazy a run for his money. But we have to be super on point with our mechanics of this matchup if we're going to go for a macro game. That is, if he wants to just proxy some DTs and gateways, then I say go for it. Who needs probes?
All right, we do have Cold Warp Gates, our Protoss player, in the upper right, and Crazy, our Terran player, in the bottom left. Yeah, for sure. I mean, he also got some tips from models on his probe production and kind of his, I think, early game stuff. So maybe he's worked on that a little bit and improved it since the last time I saw him play.
Yeah, hopefully.
But like you said, I mean, you might not want to play a macro game against Crazy. Like, he seems like he's a very strong macro player, and it might be better to do something aggressive and try and get an advantage.
Yeah, I think an early game aggressive build would be really strong here. I'm actually, from Crazy T, I'd be most expecting to see something like a 5 factory or a 6 factory push. He's really confident with his mechanics, and if you just go for that one big timing against an opponent that you think you can out macro, you'll almost certainly win the game. So I think that's probably his thought process right now. So I would like to see Cold Warp Gates take the initiative and force Terran into an uncomfortable position. Maybe something like DT drop, or I would have liked to see some proxies perhaps. But it looks like Cold Warp Gates for now at least is playing a little more standard, looking for that normal gateway in his main base, which is actually the worst place to build your first gateway, but that's beside the point.
I really appreciate you saying stuff like, I would like to see some proxies or nice DT drop.
Well, it's not me on the other receiving end of it. It's a lot easier for me to prescribe these punishments, and it makes me feel a little bit vindicated as a Terran player, seeing other Terran players lose to it. Like, this is a little bit more of like a StarCraft 2 type mentality, but when there's like potential bounce patches, you see all the players of like hating on their own race all the time, and they want to see the pro players losing, so they might get a bounce patch in their favor. So it might be a little bit of my mentality coming into it, but that's neither here nor there.
Right. I appreciate it anyhow. I think it's...
What's that?
I was just going to say I appreciate it anyhow. I feel like
of course.
A good flavor. It's a good flavor.
But we do see a probe kind of hiding, tucked away at the bottom, and we see a pylon. So either Cold Warp Gates has the stream open, or we have a telekinetic bond as a student and a coach connection together. So I think he's going to be proxying maybe a robo, or maybe some more gateways. We'll see. But we're going to see how good Crazy T's scouting is as he comes in, and we'll see if he notices that there's a pylon missing.
Right.
And robo.
Oh yeah, proxy robo. So this is going to be a reaver, right?
Yeah, most likely. We could also, most likely it's going to be a reaver. But like I said, we're going to see what Crazy is scouting reveals to him. We see one pylon right now, and as we look around the base, we haven't gotten great vision of the base, so there could still be a pylon tucked away somewhere. Here comes a third pylon, but this appears to be his second. We're going to see how cognizant Crazy is of the pylon timings of this matchup, and we'll see if he recognizes that there's something missing here.
Right. He doesn't seem to be looking around the base like you were saying for the extra pylon, so he might not notice that there's one missing.
That's my one concern. But he decides to commit his SCV scout to the main base, so hopefully this time he does a more thorough search of the main base. Most likely he's going to lose it to this goon.
All right, goons, of course, take quite a while to kill SCVs, so we can keep wandering around and see if he is able to find anything, but doesn't check this whole, like Keena's was just showing us, doesn't check the whole side of match point. Match point, of course, it has very big mains, so you can definitely tuck away a pylon somewhere, and Crazy could have missed it. Like, the pylon could have been in the main, and he might have missed it.
on a lot of maps, Protoss players will actually put their second pylon behind the minerals of their natural expansion. And when your SCV comes in to scout, it won't see that area typically. And so that pylon will go unscouted for a long time as Terran. And so you have to have that thought in the back of your mind whether or not there is some proxy on the map. It looks like, though, Terran may have caught a whiff of this as we're moving out with our first Marines in a tank. I wonder if we're going to actually look for proxies or if we're just pushing across the map here. It looks like this is just an FD push from Terran. But, oh, we're going to actually intercept these goons, and we might be able to just kill these goons, and Protoss really has nothing back at his main base to defend, so if we're able to zone these goons out, we're possibly just going to be able to kill Protoss, but this also means that we have no defense at our main base. All of our units are out on the map right now. So we're seeing Cold Warp Gates micro this really well, constantly just poking and prodding, delaying this push, pushing forward, pulling back. And we see Crazy T is kind of waffling a little bit with his army. So our push is more delayed to the Protoss base than it needed to be. And it looks like the Reaver's just about ready to pop out. Also, another smart thing is Cold Warp Gates is throwing down a second gateway here to just go all in on defending this push, because we know as long as we defend this, we're going to be doing critical damage with this Shuttle Reaver.
Oh man, I think he's going to lose that goon.
Yeah, that goon goes down. I would like to see a probe pull at this point. All we need to do is kill this army, but we're not mineral walking these probes, so they're just kind of A-moving. But it still looks like we're going to actually be able to take out this push, and our Reaver's in the main base. But we already have a turret finishing. Is it going to finish then? Oh, just in the nick of time, the SCV gets killed building it. We're going to see how good this Warp Gate micro is. So far, so good. Killing the Marines. Oh, a Vulture came out. But we need to pull back now. We're going to lose this shuttle to the... Oh, one hit away? Yeah, we lost this. Okay, so it looks like Crazy T is going to be able to hold this potentially when the next tank comes out, but until then, this Reaver is going to get quite a bit of value. And we pulled 3 SCVs with our FD push, which is a little more than usual. And it looks like the Scarab is a dud, but we're going to be losing quite a bit of SCVs here. That tank takes a big hit, and our second Reaver has already popped out. So I think Cold War Case is in a commanding position.
Right, Terran still hasn't expanded. I mean, neither of them have expanded, but it does seem like Warp Gates has killed a lot of units. Like, I think he's got like 2 tanks so far, right? And put damage on the 3rd one.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, I think you were saying in one of the other games, like, Terran is kind of about having your units together and having like a mass of units. If you can fight Terran units by themselves, it's good.
Yeah. And yeah, it basically is Protoss. If you're trading with the Terran army, you're almost always getting in an advantageous position after that, because until Terran really gets that one ball together, they're not going to be able to fight at their maximum efficiency. So just trading like Reavers for tanks back and forth really is just, we can do this all day, because behind it we're going to take another Nexus and we're going to get more gateways, but we can't just lose this Reaver for free. Then absolutely disastrous micro mistake. We're going to lose that Reaver without getting any value at all. So we're now in a precarious position where we have no defense. We only have like 1 Dragoon right now, so a little bit unfortunate. And it looks like Crazy's going to be able to take his natural uncontested if he decides to, or he can just go... Do we have a second factory built, actually? Yeah. We killed that Reaver, so we have a perfect timing window to go attack the Protoss. And it looks like Crazy T's going to take advantage of it. I wonder if we're going to be able to find out this Reaver or this Robo is proxied, though. If we could kill that, we'd be in it. Well, Cold Warp is just GG's out of nowhere. I think that was the biggest mistake of the whole match, even more than throwing away the Reaver for nothing. I mean, we're going to have another Reaver come out eventually, so as long as we have a Reaver, there's no way to lose the game, right? I don't know. But it was really good of Crazy to actually realize that he had that timing window to go punish Protoss right after killing the Reaver. So smart play by him.
Yeah, it definitely seems like he has been working on his like game sense and different builds, like response to different builds. So that's really nice to see from him, because I know that he kind of had a reputation at the beginning of the season for being like very weak to cheese and like proxies and weird stuff. But it sounds like he's really been playing a lot of games. So it's good to see that he's able to shut that kind of build down.
Yeah, as well. That was a really strong hold. I was impressed with this micro there.
Right, and our next matchup is actually going to be a preview for tomorrow's Apocalypse match. It's going to be IRK's Sheep up against Crazy. So a ZVT.
Yeah, TVZ on Neosylphid. I'm curious to see if Crazy's going to go for mech again. It's a strong map for mech. You're able to secure 4 bases with a pretty strong tank layout. But also, you're still able to do those 5-fact Goliath timings. So I'm expecting to see mech. Also, another important thing is that you're able to wall in at your main base on all 3 spawns this Terran. You can make link tight walls. So that makes mech a lot stronger. You're able to cut some early Marines for more SCVs, and you're just completely safe to any sort of early lings. So this is quite a strong map for mech, and I expect that's what we'll see from Crazy.
All right, we do have Crazy in the 12 o'clock position and IRK Sheep on the left-hand side of the map.
Yeah,
just because he's spawned in 12.
That's what o'clock position that is. It's just the left-hand side.
Yeah, I can't. I'm so bad with like clock positions. Like I was telling Keen this the other day because he was helping with something, and he kept telling me like the clock position of the base that he wanted me to send units to, and he kept telling me to send units to 12, and I just kept sending them to 6 because I'm an idiot and I don't understand what positions on a clock are.
Yeah, this is more of a 8:37 p.m. type of location.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Actually,
in Central European time, right?
Yeah,
that's approximately what time it is there, right?
Yeah. Also, the 12 o'clock spawn for Terran is kind of a spawn. If you're going for medic, you're just gonna
go bio here, can you?
What's that?
You can't go bio in the 12 o'clock position.
Well, can't is a strong word, but I would say you shouldn't. You're gonna have to have really good presence on the map with your first Marine medic to draw away the mutalisks, because if you're going to get caught in your base constantly defending, you're just going to get picked apart. It's so open to air, the flight path is so short, and the turret placement is so terrible.
Suboptimal?
Yeah, suboptimal is a better way to put it.
Hashtag not ideal.
Yeah, but it looks like we're not going for gas from Terran. It looks like we're going to be playing straight up. So already I'm a little bit concerned for Crazy, but hopefully he has something prepared.
Right. I guess we'll see what happens too. I mean, both these players know that they're playing each other in a best of 9 tomorrow. So
there's going to be any preset mind games going on here, a little preset conditioning.
Right. I know that Sheep has really been playing a lot of CBT recently. Keen is judging his spawning pool location. You can actually, in this position on Sylphid, if you put the spawning pool, I think 1 hex down from where he has it, or 2 hexes down, kind of at the corner of the hatchery, you can speed up the mining of the he's made that box thing 4 times already. You can speed
wants us to point it out.
Yeah. You can speed up the mining of the top mineral patch. It's just a small thing. That's you can just put your spawning pool there, and it kind of boosts the top mineral patch, so you mine better.
Yeah, so it looks like it's going to be 2-hatch play from Sheep, which is pretty common. I play with him somewhat often, and I feel like he usually goes for 2-hatch. So this is his comfort zone for sure.
Have you been playing with him recently?
Yeah, we've gotten we always have the worst schedules to play with each other, but I have gotten able to play a couple games with him, I think last weekend. So
yes. Also, he's not mining from his bottom mineral patch, and Keen's pointing that out to us as well. But yeah. I mean, Sheep, of course, is a JUN student, so he played a lot of 3-hatch, and he practiced a lot of 3-hatch. But kind of recently, we've had some help from Crossy, and Crossy's really recommending his students to play 2-hatchery meta for the moment, depending on different styles, of course. But I think Sheep's been practicing that a lot in the last week and a half, 2 weeks. So I think that I'm not at all surprised to see him coming out with this here. And I think it's actually fortunate for him that Crazy is deciding to go bio. Not just because of the positions, but I actually think he plays against bio more.
Yeah, I can see that for sure.
Unless, I don't know if you've been practicing mech with him.
No, mostly bio.
Yeah.
But if he's a disciple of Crossy, we may be seeing a little bit of a Ling all-in coming at some point. One of the big, powerful parts of 2-hatch play And specifically the gas before pool 2 hatch is that as soon as you get your lair, your next 100 gas can go to link speed, and then Terran is pretty on the back foot until they get their medics out. You can't move out, or else you could just potentially get surrounded and die to speed links instantly. But we're droning up pretty heavily. It looks like we already have 7 drones in our naturals, so it's not going to be an immediate ling all in for the time being. And we have a PP called out. We have a dead headset.
All right, I just wanted to say, like, as far as the ling all in goes, he'd actually went pool before gas. He didn't go gas before pool.
Yeah.
And I mean, you have to build 6 to 8 lings with this build, anyways. But I think did he lose his lings?
I
don't think we got it on camera, but I don't see the lings anywhere.
Oh, I saw some dead spots next to those Marines, so it looks like he ran a couple into the Marines. Yeah, some damaged Marines. Right. He took a bad fight there.
Yeah, that's actually pretty bad for Zerg in general. Like, when you're going to actually play, you really need to keep those 6 to 8 lings alive, because you need them to kill off the first group from Terran.
Yeah, a preemptive sunken colony coming up out of sheep, probably in response to losing those first lings. Because, look, we have no vision at all on the map. So as soon as these Marine medics come out, we'll have no idea that they're on the map. And so we're playing totally in the dark at this point.
Right.
So this preemptive sunken colony is probably a good idea, but I am already concerned for sheep. And
yeah, losing those 6 to 8 lings, like, they're just really precious, those speed lings in 2Hatch meta. You have so little larva compared to other builds, so you're just really in really just in a precarious situation in general. Yeah. For like every unit really counts. You need to keep them all alive, because if you have to build a sunk or like whatever you have to do, it takes a really big hit to your economy.
Yeah, one of the biggest parts about 2Hatch Muta versus SK Terran style play in this mid game is Terran is trying to get an army out on the map, and Mutalisks are being used by Zerg to try and kind of draw the army back to the Terran base with harassment. But as long as Terran has an army on the map and Zerg doesn't know where it is, Zerg has to play very defensively with their Mutalisks, because if those Marine medic just show up on the doorstep of Zerg without the Zerg knowing about it, he's just going to instantly die. So these first Mutalisks have to be wary. Since we lost those early lings, we have no vision. So the first thing these Mutalisks do is try and find the Terran army. So yeah, we spot it with these Mutalisks, and I expect Zerg has to kind of keep engaging this bio ball as long as it's out on the map like this, even if it's just in front of the Terran base. Zerg has to keep an eye on it at all times. Like I said, if it shows up on the Zerg doorstep unannounced, the game just ends. So Zerg is forced to kind of keep microing against this first ball of Marine medic.
All right, looks like he did build a couple of extra speed lanes. And he's just building up his count of Mutalisks. He knows he has to kill this first group of Marine medic with Mutaling. So he's just trying to keep all of his units alive in this situation. Now that he has a little bit more Mutalisks, and he can threaten the army a little bit more. Yeah. And we'll have to see what kind of follow-up Sheep decides to go for. Basically, as soon as he kills the first army, he is able to choose a follow-up.
Yeah, but this bio wall from Terran is very scary. We have 4 medics with this and over a control group of Marine. So we're not going to be able to engage this Sheep. And if we just stroll over to the third base of Zerg, which we have scouted, by the way, we're not going to have any defense here in time for Zerg. So we need to make something happen now. We need some Zerglings coming out or more Mutalisks or something. But as it stands, we're not able to engage this Marine medic force head on. We don't have any sunkens to assist us at the third base. Although that was a great hit. We just killed like 2 Marines there for free, it looks like. And we're picking off Marines left and right. So this we have to keep up this perfect Mutalisk micro for the next minute or so, or else we might just lose our third base.
Right. And the kind of the stimming and running thing that Terran can do, I mean, that's like Zerg kind of wants them to do that.
Yeah.
The more that Terran stims, the more the medic energy gets tapped. But like you said, he does have quite a few medics with this bio ball.
We'll see if the sunken colony is able to come up in time, but it looks like Terran wants to force the engagement now, stimming up the ramp. Bogus trying those Mutalisks, doing a huge amount of damage, and it doesn't look like that Zerg is going to be able to hold this third base.
Oh yeah, a bit of a micro mistake there from Sheep. If he had just been a little bit more patient, I think he could have actually killed that group.
But we have reinforcement links coming in. We'll see if this is able to hold long enough for the sunken colony to come up, because if the sun comes up, we might actually be able to hold this. This is going to be super close. There's only 4 Mutalisks left, and the sunken colony goes down. So looks like that Zerg is going to have to flip this
The fact that you thought that was close tells me that you're a Terran player.
Well, I actually think that, well, he probably couldn't have held it, but I think that it would have been better for Zerg to just A-move with the Mutalisks there and draw as much fire from the sunken as possible. We kept microing the Mutalisks, so that the Marine Medic was able to focus the sunken down. But you're right.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if he had actually just A-moved when the Lings came in with the mutas, he would have had a better shot, because basically Lings can do a lot of damage if they don't get picked off right away. But when you're microing the mutas back and forth, like he was bringing them really far back when he was doing the micro. So it just gets really tricky.
Right. The point of doing that mutalisk micro is to prevent the mutas from taking damage at all. But in certain cases, you actually want to be using the mutalisks to tank damage while the Lings do the DPS or the Suns do the DPS. But
we actually have a lurker, but it's not burrowing. And I think this is game for our Zerg player.
Yeah. No lurkers in time, just one sunk is not enough. And while the micro from Sheep was actually quite good this game, it just wasn't quite enough to pick off the Marines. So it looks like that Terran is going to be claiming the final victory here in our KCM Race Wars. Or CPL Race Wars, I should say.
All right.
Nice
effort. Yeah, nice effort from Sheep. I think actually if he hadn't had lost those first Lings, he probably could have killed that bio ball. But he kind of had the mutas in front of the units, and he wasn't able to prevent Terran from reinforcing. And I feel like that really, like, if you allow Terran to just keep adding units to the bio ball, then they just are able to hit a critical mass, and it's just very difficult to contest that at all with mutaling.
Yeah, playing that 2-hash muta style, you're really playing on the razor's edge for that whole mid game until you're able to get lurkers defending positions. You have to have super killer instincts with your micro and with your mutalist movement. And we kind of just saw Sheep fall apart. It's such a hard build to execute, 2-hash mutalisks. I see so many Zergs kill themselves trying to learn that build, but if you're able to execute it properly, it makes ZVT look like an actually good matchup, so I don't blame them.
All right, guys. That brings our third round of eradication games to an end. We do have Terran claiming another victory here, so we've had 2 Terran wins and 1 Protoss win so far. Yeah. So Zerg still weakest race in CPL confirmed, with less than 50% win rate in all matchups. But we gave it a good shot. I think Bojack and QuakeCon both did very good this week.
Yeah,
so.
I was impressed with how QuakeCon was playing today.
Yeah, QuakeCon played really well. But thank you guys all for tuning in. Be sure to tune in tonight at 7:30 p.m. EDT on the Coach Pupil League channel, because we have a Hawk Masterclass. So that's for Zerg players, so we can win a future eradication games and not keep losing them. So definitely tune into that. We have Return and Keen and George all playing in that masterclass, and that's going to be a lot of fun. We also have 3 Apocalypse matches coming up this week. We have IRK Sheep up against Crazy tomorrow at 5 p.m. EDT. We also have IRK MWK up against Mars on Thursday at 1 p.m. EDT. And we have another TVP on Saturday at 1 p.m. EDT, which is going to be Thrive against JPAC. Of course, we also have the match of the week on Thursday at 6 p.m. EDT with Sad Zero and usually Nablime. So that's a great place. If you're new to the CPL community, tune into that and hang out with the CPL family, because that's a really that's where we all kind of go to hang out on Thursdays as far as like watching regular CPL casts. But thank you to everyone who participated and everyone who tuned in, and thanks for casting with me.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
And thanks
to everybody.
Yeah, thanks to Keen for hosting it. I think that we have somebody streaming CPL games right now. Kazooie. So maybe we can go ahead and give him a host. That'll be up to Keen. But yeah, thanks guys for tuning in, and see you tomorrow at the Apocalypse match.